When I asked about the date of my daughter's wedding, my son-in-law said, "We got married yesterday. It was just for special people." A week later he called, "The rent is overdue. Did you transfer it?" I replied, "Didn't I tell you?" Look, I'm not proud of what I did. But when your own daughter's husband looks you dead in the eye and tells you that you weren't special enough for their wedding, something inside you just breaks. And when it breaks, sometimes you break other things too. Let me back up. My name is Margaret, Maggie to people who actually give a damn about me, and until 3 months ago, I thought I was a decent mother. Divorced, sure. A little overprotective, maybe. But I'd spent 24 years raising Emma alone after her father decided fatherhood wasn't his calling. I worked 2 jobs to put her through college, helped her with a down payment on her first apartment, and when she met Derek at that marketing firm, I was genuinely happy for her. Derek seemed fine. Polite enough at family dinners, though he had this way of looking at his phone whenever I spoke, like I was background noise in his own personal movie. Emma was smitten, talking about how ambitious he was, how he was going to revolutionize digital marketing with some app idea that sounded like every other app idea I'd heard from 20-something guys in expensive sneakers. The engagement happened fast. 6 months of dating, then suddenly Emma's calling me, breathless with excitement, telling me Derek proposed during a weekend in Napa. I should have been thrilled. Instead, I felt this weird knot in my stomach, like when you smell something burning but can't find the source. "Mom, we're thinking a small ceremony," Emma had said over lunch at our usual spot, this little bistro where we'd been having mother-daughter dates since she was 16. "Just close family and friends." "Of course, sweetheart. Whatever makes you happy." I'd reached across to squeeze her hand. "Just tell me when and where, and I'll be there with bells on." That was 4 months ago. For 4 months, I asked about dates. About venues. About whether she needed help with anything, flowers, catering, her dress. Emma would get this vague look and say they were still figuring things out or that Derek was handling the logistics. Meanwhile, Derek would nod along like some kind of puppet master, occasionally throwing in comments about how weddings were really just expensive parties for other people anyway. Red flag number 1, when someone thinks celebrating love is a waste of money, they probably don't understand love. But Emma seemed happy, so I bit my tongue. I bit it so hard I'm surprised I didn't need stitches. Then came last Tuesday. I was at my desk at the insurance office, clamorous, I know, when my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. A photo. Her in a simple white dress, Derek in a navy suit, some random guy who looked like a courthouse officiant between them. Both of them grinning. "Just got married," 2 hearts emoji. I stared at that photo for probably 5 full minutes. The fluorescent lights hummed above me. Carol from Claims was talking loudly about her cat's kidney problems. Everything felt surreal, like I was looking at someone else's phone, someone else's daughter. I called Emma immediately. "Mom. Did you see? We did it." Her voice was bright, almost manic. "Emma, what? When did this happen?" "This morning. We decided we didn't want to wait anymore. Derek found this lovely judge who could squeeze us in, and it just felt right, you know?" My mouth felt dry. "Sweetheart, why didn't you tell me? I would have been there in a heartbeat." There was a pause. Then Derek's voice in the background, muffled but distinct, "Tell her about the celebration." "Oh, Mom, we're having a little celebration tonight. Just a few people. Derek's college friends, my roommate from junior year." "That sounds lovely. What time should I?" "Actually, Mom." Another pause. Longer this time. "It's really just for special people. You understand?" I'm not sure what sound I made. It wasn't quite a laugh, wasn't quite a sob. Something in between, like air being let out of a balloon. "Special people," I repeated. "You know what I mean. People who've been really involved in our relationship. Derek's groomsmen, the girls who helped me pick out rings." "Emma, I'm your mother." "I know, Mom. And we'll celebrate with you soon. Maybe this weekend? We can go to that bistro you like." I hung up. Not dramatically, I didn't slam the phone down like some soap opera character. I just pressed the red button and sat there, staring at the photo again. My daughter, married to a man who thought I wasn't special enough to witness the most important day of her life. Carol was still talking about the cat. When I got home that night, I opened a bottle of wine. Then another. I'm not usually a drinker, maybe a glass with dinner on weekends, but that night I needed something to dull the sharp edges of what felt suspiciously like heartbreak. I kept staring at that photo. Derek's smug smile. Emma's radiant face. The courthouse steps I should have been standing on. You know what's funny? I'd imagined her wedding day 1,000 times. Walking her down the aisle since there was no father to do it. Crying during her vows. Dancing with her at the reception to that Taylor Swift song she loved when she was 12. Stupid, sentimental mother things. Instead, I got a text message and a polite dismissal. I was 3 classes deep when my phone rang. Derek. "Hi, Mrs. Patterson. Just wanted to touch base about the rent transfer." I blinked, confused. The what now? For Emma's, our apartment. The landlord's being a real pain about getting it in on time, and you know how it is. Oh, I knew how it was. For the past year, I'd been helping Emma with rent. $700 a month transferred directly to her account, because the marketing industry is really competitive right now. Mama and Derek's app is in the development phase. I've been subsidizing their life together while working overtime at a job I hate, because that's what mothers do. But apparently, that's not what special people do. Mrs. Patterson? You still there? Yeah, Derek. I'm here. So can you get that transferred tonight? I know it's short notice, but, actually, Derek, I need to ask you something. Sure, what's up? I took a sip of wine. Then another. When you said the celebration was just for special people, what exactly did you mean by that? Silence. I could practically hear him thinking, trying to figure out if this was a trap. Well, people who've been really supportive of our relationship journey. Journey. I almost laughed. Derek, I've been paying your rent. Emma's rent, he corrected quickly. Your rent, Derek. Because last I checked, you live there too. I've been paying your groceries when I send Emma money for food. Mrs. Patterson, I don't think. $700 a month for 12 months. That's $8,400, Derek. From someone who apparently isn't special enough to watch her only child get married. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had that tight, controlled quality men get when they're trying not to lose their temper with women. Look, I understand you're upset, but it wasn't personal. We just wanted something intimate. Intimate, I repeated. With your college buddies. They're important to me. And I'm not important to Emma? Of course you are. You're her mother. But not special. I could hear him breathing. Probably counting to 10, the way people do when they're talking to children or crazy people. Mrs. Patterson, can we discuss this later? The rent is really... Actually, Derek, I need to tell you something. Okay. I took another sip of wine. Liquid courage, my grandmother used to call it. I didn't transfer the rent money. What do you mean? I mean I didn't send it. This month or last month, actually. Didn't I mention that? I thought I told Emma. You. What? Oh, didn't I tell you? I was channeling my sweetest, most innocent voice. The one I used to use with difficult customers at work. I've been so busy planning my own little celebration. You know how it is. Mrs. Patterson, this isn't funny. If we don't pay rent, you'll get evicted, I said cheerfully. Yes, that's generally how it works. You can't be serious. Derek, honey, I'm as serious as a courthouse wedding. I hung up. Then I sat there, heart pounding, wondering what the heck I'd just done. Here's the thing about revenge, everyone thinks it's this calculated, cold thing. But real revenge, the kind that comes from a place of deep hurt, it's hot and impulsive and usually involves wine. My phone started ringing immediately. Derek. Then Emma. Then Derek again. I turned it off. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and approximately 200 missed calls and text messages. Most of them variations on Mom, what the heck, and Mrs. Patterson, we need to talk. I made coffee, took 2 aspirin, and read through them all while sitting in my kitchen, still in my pajamas. Emma's messages started panicked and got progressively angrier. Mom, Derek says you didn't send rent money? Please call me back. Mom. This is insane. You can't just stop paying because you're mad about the wedding. We could get evicted. I can't believe you're being this petty. That last one made me laugh. Petty. Like wanting to be at my daughter's wedding was some kind of trivial preference. Derek's messages were more interesting. Mrs. Patterson, I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. Please call me back so we can resolve this. Emma's really upset. Look, maybe we made a mistake not inviting you to the ceremony. We can work something out. Mrs. Patterson, please. I poured myself another cup of coffee and composed my response. Just one text, to Emma. Sweetheart, I'm sorry you're upset. I thought you'd be busy celebrating with all the special people. I didn't want to bother you with unspecial person problems like rent money. Love you, 2 hearts emoji. Then I turned my phone off again and went to work. Carol was still talking about her cat, but today it felt comforting instead of annoying. Normal people with normal problems. No secret weddings or financial manipulation or children who'd been turned against their mothers by smug little boys in expensive sneakers. I made it through exactly 3 hours before my desk phone rang. Maggie, your daughter's here, said Brenda from the front desk. My stomach dropped. Emma had never come to my office. Not once in the 2 years I'd been working there. Send her back. Emma appeared in my cubicle doorway looking like she'd been crying. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing the same jeans and NYU sweatshirt she'd had since sophomore year. This was Emma in crisis mode. Mom. Hi, sweetheart. She sat down in the plastic chair next to my desk, the one I kept for the rare occasions when coworkers needed to discuss cases. Her hands were shaking. What are you doing? Working, apparently. It's this thing people do to make money. Don't be cute, Mom. You know what I mean. I turned away from my computer to look at her directly. Really look at her. When had she gotten so thin? When had those little lines appeared around her eyes? Emma, why are you here? Because you won't answer your phone. Because Derek is freaking out. Because our landlord called this morning and said we have 48 hours to pay or we're out. That sounds like a Derek problem. It's our problem, Mom. I live there too. Yes, you do. With your husband, who apparently makes decisions about who's important enough to be included in your life. Emma's face crumpled. Mom, please. I know you're hurt about the wedding. Hurt? I kept my voice level, but something cold was creeping through my chest. Emma, I'm not hurt. Hurt is when someone cancels plans or forgets your birthday. What I am is furious. She flinched. I never swore in front of Emma. Derek said it would be better if we kept it small, Derek said. I leaned back in my chair. And what did you say, Emma? I agreed with him. You agreed that your mother wasn't special enough to be there. That's not. What would you call it then? Emma was crying now, tears streaming down her face. A few people were starting to look over the cubicle walls, but I didn't care. I call it the biggest mistake I've ever made, she whispered. And there it was. The crack in the wall Derek had built around my daughter. I handed her the box of tissues from my desk. Tell me about the wedding, Em. She took a shaky breath. It wasn't what I wanted. What do you mean? I wanted you there, Mom. I wanted our bistro for the reception. I wanted to wear Grandma's ring. She was sobbing now. But Derek kept saying how expensive everything was, and how weddings were just performances, and wouldn't it be more authentic if it was just us and the people who really mattered to our relationship. And I didn't matter to your relationship? No. You matter to everything. But Derek. He gets in my head sometimes. He makes me feel like I'm being dramatic or unrealistic when I want things. Red flag number 2, when someone makes you feel crazy for having normal human desires. Emma, look at me. She lifted her head. Do you love him? Yes. I think so. I mean, we've been together for almost 2 years and we live together, and now we're married. That's not what I asked. She stared at me for a long moment. I don't know anymore, Mom. I don't know anything anymore. My heart broke a little. Not for me this time, but for her. My brilliant, beautiful daughter who'd gotten tangled up with someone who made her question her own feelings. Okay, I said. Okay, what? Okay, I'll transfer the rent money. Her face lit up with relief. Really? Mom, thank you. I know Derek will be so, on one condition. The relief flickered. What condition? You and Derek come to dinner at my house tomorrow night. Both of you. We're going to have a conversation. About what? I smiled. It probably wasn't a very nice smile. About a lot of things. About respect. About family. About what happens when you take people for granted. Emma nodded quickly. Okay. Yes. We'll be there. Good. Tell Derek 7 o'clock. And Emma? Yeah? Tell him to bring an appetite. I'm making something special. After Emma left, I sat at my desk for another few minutes, thinking. Then I picked up my phone and called my sister Rachel. Maggie? You never call during work. Rachel, I need you to come to dinner tomorrow night. Okay. Why do you sound like you're planning a murder? Because I might be. I told her everything. The wedding, the rent, Emma's visit. Rachel listened without interrupting, which is not her usual style. Oh my, Maggie. That little language, Rachel. Oh, excuse my language. He manipulated your daughter into excluding you from her wedding, then had the balls to ask for rent money? I hope you're planning something terrible. I'm planning something educational. Even better. What do you need me to do? Just be there. And bring David if he's free. I want Derek to understand that Emma has a family who loves her. Consider it done. Should I bring my camera? I feel like we're going to want documentation of whatever you're about to do. That night, I went grocery shopping. I bought ingredients for Derek's favorite meal. Emma had mentioned once that he loved my beef bourguignon. I also bought ingredients for a few other things. Then I went home and did something I hadn't done in months. I cooked. Really cooked. The kind of elaborate meal I used to make when Emma was in high school and would bring friends over. When our house felt like a home instead of a lonely echo chamber. I made the bourguignon. I made roasted vegetables. Fresh bread. A chocolate cake from scratch, Emma's favorite since she was 7 years old. And I made plans. Thursday evening, Rachel and David arrived first. Rachel looked around my dining room. I'd used the good china, lit candles, even put flowers on the table. This looks like a celebration, she said suspiciously. It is. For what? For Derek learning some important life lessons. David, who'd been married to my sister for 15 years and had learned when not to ask questions, just kissed my cheek and asked if I needed help with anything. Emma and Derek arrived exactly at 7. Derek was carrying a bottle of wine, some expensive-looking thing that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. Mrs. Patterson, thank you so much for having us, he said, all charm and white teeth. And thank you for sorting out that rent situation. I knew it was just a misunderstanding. Oh, Derek. You have no idea. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Derek complimented the food, asked David about his work, told Rachel her haircut was flattering. He was performing the role of perfect son-in-law with Oscar-worthy commitment. Emma was quieter than usual, picking at her food and shooting nervous glances between Derek and me. About halfway through the main course, Derek started talking about their honeymoon plans. We're thinking Bali, he said, cutting into his beef. Emma's never been to Southeast Asia, and I know this amazing resort. How lovely, Rachel said. When are you going? Next month, hopefully. As soon as we save up enough. I set down my fork. Save up? Well, you know how expensive international travel is, Derek said with a laugh. But Emma deserves something special for our honeymoon. She deserved something special for her wedding too, I said quietly. The table went silent. Emma's face went pale. Derek cleared his throat. Mrs. Patterson, about that. I hope you can understand our decision. We really did want to keep things intimate. Intimate, I repeated. Tell me, Derek, how many people were at this intimate ceremony? Maybe 20? 20 people. But not Emma's mother. It wasn't personal. Stop. My voice was sharper than I intended. Stop saying it wasn't personal. Everything about excluding a parent from their child's wedding is personal. Derek's mask was starting to slip. I could see irritation flickering behind his practiced smile. Look, Mrs. Patterson, I understand you're upset, but nothing. You want to know what I understand, Derek? I understand that you convinced my daughter I wasn't important enough to be there. I understand that you've been taking my money for over a year while simultaneously deciding I wasn't worth including in the most important day of her life. And I understand that you think I'm stupid enough to just keep paying for your lifestyle while you treat me like crap. Emma was staring at her plate. Mom. No, Emma. Let me finish. I turned back to Derek. You want to go to Bali? You want expensive resorts and international travel? Here's an idea, pay for it yourself. Derek's jaw tightened. That's a little unfair. Emma and I are just getting started in our careers. Emma is getting started in her career. You, as far as I can tell, are getting started on your 3rd year of having other people pay your bills. That's not. What exactly do you do for work, Derek? He blinked. I'm in digital marketing. Where? I'm between positions right now. But I'm working on this app. For how long? What? How long have you been between positions? Emma looked up sharply. Apparently this was news to her too. Derek's face was flushing. The job market is really competitive right now, so you don't have a job. I'm an entrepreneur. You don't have a job, I repeated. You don't pay rent. You don't buy groceries. You live off my daughter and my money while simultaneously deciding I'm not good enough for your little celebration. The room was dead silent except for the sound of Derek's breathing, which was getting faster and shallower. Mrs. Patterson, I think you're being really unfair, am I? I stood up and walked to the kitchen, returning with a manila folder. Let me show you what unfair looks like. I opened the folder and started pulling out papers. Bank statements. Receipts. A detailed spreadsheet I'd spent the previous evening putting together. Rent money to Emma, $8,400 over 12 months. Grocery money, approximately $2,000. Gas money for Emma's car, $600. The security deposit when you moved in together, $1,200. Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, emergency loans that were never paid back. I looked up at Derek. Derek, do you know how much money I've given Emma since you two started dating? He was staring at the papers like they might bite him. $13,734. That's how much your relationship has cost me. Emma's fork clattered to her plate. Mom, I didn't know it was that much. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel bad. You're my daughter. Helping you is what I do. I turned back to Derek. But helping you? That was never part of the deal. Derek's charming mask was completely gone now. Look, I appreciate everything you've done, but Emma and I are adults. Adults pay their own rent. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I sat back down, keeping my voice calm. Derek, I want you to leave. What? I want you to leave my house. Now. Mom, Emma started. Emma, you can stay. We need to talk. But Derek needs to go. Derek looked around the table like he was expecting someone to defend him. Rachel was studying her wine glass with great interest. David was cutting his beef into very small, precise pieces. Emma was crying again. "This is insane," Derek said. "You can't just. I can do whatever I want in my own house. Which, unlike your apartment, I actually pay for." Derek stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Emma, we're leaving." Emma looked up at him, then at me, then back at him. For a moment, I thought she might actually go with him. Then she said, very quietly, "No." "What?" I said, "No, Derek. I'm staying." "Emma, don't let her manipulate you." "Manipulate?" Emma's voice was getting stronger. "Derek, my mother just showed me that she spent almost $14,000 helping us, and you want to talk about manipulation? That was her choice, and it was your choice to convince me she wasn't special enough for our wedding." Derek's face went through several expressions: anger, panic, calculation. Finally, he seemed to settle on wounded innocence. "Emma, baby, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly." Red flag number 3, telling someone they're not thinking clearly when they're finally starting to see the truth. "Get out," Emma said. "What?" "Get out of my mother's house." Derek stared at her for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was cold and precise. "Fine. But when you're done with this little family drama, remember that I'm your husband. Remember that you chose me." He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Just before he left, he turned back. "Mrs. Patterson, you're making a big mistake. Emma needs me." I smiled. "Derek, you need it, Emma. There's a difference." After he left, the four of us sat in silence for a few minutes. Emma was crying quietly, but it wasn't the panicked crying from earlier. It was the kind of crying that happens when pressure finally gets released. Rachel said gently. "Are you okay?" Emma wiped her eyes. I think I've been really stupid." "Not stupid," I said. "Just young. And in love with the wrong person." "How did you know?" "About Derek?" David spoke up for the first time all evening. "Kid, guys like Derek are a dime a dozen. They find women who are successful and kind and generous, and they convince them that love means supporting their dreams while never supporting yours in return. He made me feel crazy," Emma whispered. "Like wanting normal things, like wanting my mom at my wedding, was somehow wrong or needy or dramatic." "That's called gaslighting, sweetheart," Rachel said. "And it's not love." Emma nodded slowly. "What do I do now?" "Whatever you want," I said. "This is your life, Em. But you don't have to figure it all out tonight." Can I stay here for a while? I don't want to go back to the apartment." "You can stay as long as you want. This is your home." That night, after Rachel and David left and Emma went upstairs to her old room, I sat in my kitchen drinking tea and looking at the leftover cake. We'd barely touched it during dinner. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "This isn't over." I typed back, "You're right. It's not." Then I blocked his number. Over the next few days, Emma started untangling her life from Derek's. It wasn't easy. They had a lease together, joint bank accounts, all the complicated financial threads that couples weave together. But Emma was stronger than I'd given her credit for. She'd just been convinced she was weak by someone who needed her to be weak. Derek tried everything. Flowers. Romantic texts sent from different numbers. Showing up at her work. He even tried to get Emma's friends to convince her she was making a mistake. But the thing about gaslighting is that once you recognize it, you can't unsee it. Emma started remembering things differently. How Derek had isolated her from college friends who didn't understand their relationship. How he'd convinced her that my interference was unhealthy. How he'd made her feel guilty for spending money on anything he didn't approve of, while simultaneously spending her money on his hobbies. 3 weeks after the dinner, Emma came home from meeting with a lawyer about the lease situation. She looked exhausted but determined. "It's done," she said. "I'm officially not responsible for the apartment anymore." "How did Derek take it?" "About as well as you'd expect. He screamed at me for 20 minutes about how I was abandoning him, how I was choosing my family over our marriage, how he was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was. I'm sorry, sweetheart." Emma shook her head. "Don't be. You know what I realized today?" "What?" "He never once said he was sorry. Not for excluding you from the wedding. Not for taking your money. Not for lying about having a job. He was angry that I found out, but he was never sorry for doing it in the first place." That, I realized, was the difference between someone who makes mistakes and someone who thinks other people exist to serve them. Emma filed for an annulment the next week. Turned out that Derek's lies about his employment status constituted fraud, which made the marriage legally voidable. Sometimes life has a sense of humor. The day the annulment was finalized, Emma and I went to our bistro. Our table was available, the same one where we'd had lunch 4 months earlier when she was planning her small ceremony. "Mom," Emma said over her salad. "I owe you an apology." You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. I let him convince me you were overbearing and possessive. I let him make me feel like wanting my mother at my wedding was somehow pathetic. I reached across the table to take her hand. Emma, you were manipulated by someone who is very good at manipulation. That's not your fault. But I should have seen it. I should have trusted my instincts. Your instincts are fine. You just learned to doubt them because someone convinced you to. Now you know what that feels like, and you'll never let it happen again. Emma squeezed my hand. I want to have another wedding someday. A real one. With you there. Whenever you're ready, sweetheart. I'll be there with bells on. And maybe we could do something to celebrate this one ending? Like a divorce party, but for an annulment? I grinned. An annulment party. I like it. What did you have in mind? Remember that karaoke place we went to for my 21st birthday? The one where you sang I Will Survive and made everyone cry? Oh gosh, you want to go back there? I want to go back there. I want to sing terrible songs and drink too much and celebrate the fact that I'm free. Emma? Yeah? You were always free. You just forgot for a while. That night, at the karaoke bar, Emma got up on stage and sang Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. She was off-key and emotional and absolutely perfect. When she got to the part about being stronger than she was before, the whole bar was cheering. I sang I Will Survive again, because some songs never get old. But the best part of the night was when Emma got up to sing one more song. She looked right at me and said, "This one's for my mom, who taught me that real love doesn't make you smaller." Then she sang You've Got a Friend by Carole King, and I cried like a baby. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Patterson? Derek. What do you want, Derek? I wanted to let you know that Emma and I are getting back together. I almost laughed. Really? Because Emma's sitting right here next to me, and she says that's news to her. Silence. Derek, Emma filed for an annulment. It's over. She'll change her mind. She always does. No, Derek. She won't. Because she's not the same person she was when you met her. She's stronger now. She remembers who she is. This is your fault, he said, and there was something ugly in his voice now. You poisoned her against me. I didn't have to poison her against you, Derek. You did that yourself. You're going to regret this. Both of you. The line went dead. I looked at Emma, who'd heard the whole conversation. Should I be worried? She asked. Probably not. Guys like Derek are usually all bark and no bite. But let's be careful for a while, okay? I was wrong about the bark and no bite thing. 3 days later, Emma's car tires were slashed in the parking lot of her office building. Security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned that day. No witnesses. The day after that, someone broke into her old apartment, the one Derek was still living in, technically, and trashed the place. Derek called the police, claiming Emma had done it out of spite. Never mind that Emma had been at work all day with about 50 witnesses. Then Derek started showing up places. Emma's work. The grocery store near my house. The bistro where we had lunch. Never doing anything threatening, exactly. Just appearing. Watching. Mom, this is getting scary, Emma said after the third coincidental encounter in a week. I know, sweetheart. I think it's time to call the police. The police were less than helpful. Derek was careful not to cross any obvious legal lines. Following someone isn't illegal if you don't physically threaten them. Slashed tires couldn't be proven. The apartment break-in was he said she said. Unless he actually threatens you or tries to hurt you, there's not much we can do, Officer Martinez explained. You could try a restraining order, but with the evidence you have. Emma and I left the police station feeling more frustrated than when we'd arrived. That night, I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep when I heard something that made my blood freeze. Footsteps on my front porch. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd started keeping by my bed, a precaution that had seemed paranoid until this moment, and crept to the front window. The porch light was on, but I couldn't see anyone. Then I heard the footsteps again. Slow, deliberate. Someone walking back and forth across my porch. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but before I could dial, the footsteps stopped. A car engine started somewhere down the street. Then silence. In the morning, I found a single red rose on my doorstep. No note. But the message was clear, I know where you live. I called Emma immediately. He was here last night, I told her. On my porch. What? Mom, are you okay? I'm fine. But this needs to stop. I know. I'm going to call that lawyer again, see if... No. Something had crystallized in my mind overnight. We're not running from him anymore. What do you mean? I mean Derek thinks he's playing chess, but he's actually playing checkers. And I've been letting him set the rules. That afternoon, I did something I probably should have done weeks earlier. I called my brother-in-law's cousin Marcus, who works in private security. The kind of private security that specializes in people who don't want to be found, or people who need to stop being bothered by other people. Marcus came over that evening. He's this quiet, unassuming guy who looks like an accountant until you notice his eyes, which miss nothing. So, he said after I'd explained the situation. You've got a stalker ex-son-in-law who thinks harassment is a valid relationship strategy. That's about the size of it. And the police won't help because he's being careful not to cross obvious legal lines. Right. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. These guys usually escalate until someone stops them. The question is how far you want to let it go before we intervene. What kind of intervention are we talking about? Marcus smiled, and it wasn't entirely reassuring. The legal kind. Mostly. I have some friends who specialize in gathering evidence that tends to hold up in court. Evidence? Security footage. Financial records. Digital communications. Amazing how sloppy people get when they think nobody's watching. I thought about the rose on my doorstep. About Emma jumping every time her phone buzzed. About the way Derek had looked at me that night at dinner, like I was something he could dispose of when I became inconvenient. Do it, I said. Over the next week, Marcus and his friends got to work. I don't know exactly what they did. Marcus believed in plausible deniability, but suddenly we had a very clear picture of Derek's activities. Turns out, he'd been busier than we thought. He'd created fake social media accounts to harass Emma's co-workers, trying to get her fired. He'd been calling her landlord with concerns about noise complaints and lease violations. He'd even contacted her college alumni association with stories about her being involved in some kind of financial fraud. But the most interesting discovery was Derek's browser history. Your boy's been doing research, Marcus told me over coffee. Lot of searches about how to make someone's life miserable without getting caught. Forums about revenge tactics. Some pretty dark stuff about getting back at women who ruin men's lives. How dark? Dark enough that we should take this seriously. He's not just angry, Maggie. He's obsessed. That night, Derek proved Marcus right. Emma was staying at my house. She basically moved back in after the tire slashing incident. We were watching a movie, some romantic comedy that felt surreal given the circumstances, when we heard glass breaking. The sound came from the kitchen. Emma grabbed my arm, her fingernails digging into my skin. Stay here, I whispered, reaching for my phone and the baseball bat. Mom, don't. But I was already moving toward the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. The bat felt heavier than usual in my hands. The kitchen window was shattered, glass scattered across the floor like deadly confetti. A brick sat in the middle of it all, with something wrapped around it. I used the bat to carefully extract the paper. A note, written in Derek's familiar handwriting. This is what happens to people who destroy families. Mom? Emma's voice from the doorway, small and scared. Call 911, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. Tell them someone threw a brick through our window. While Emma called the police, I took photos of everything. The broken window, the brick, the note. Marcus had taught me to document everything. The police came this time. Officer Martinez again, looking tired and slightly annoyed. Any idea who might have done this? He asked, examining the note. My ex-son-in-law, I said. Derek Collins. We filed a complaint about harassment last week. Can you prove it was him? I handed him my phone, showing him the photos I'd taken. That's his handwriting? Handwriting analysis isn't admissible unless it's done by an expert, then get an expert. Martinez sighed. Mrs. Patterson, I understand your frustration, but nothing. My voice was getting sharper. Someone threw a brick through my window with a threatening note attached, and you're telling me you can't do anything about it because we need a handwriting expert? What exactly do you plan to do when he escalates further? We'll increase patrols in your neighborhood. Officer Martinez, with all due respect, your patrols didn't stop him from slashing my daughter's tires, breaking into her apartment, stalking her at work, or throwing a brick through my kitchen window. What makes you think they'll stop whatever he does next? Martinez looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, we're doing everything we can within the law. Then maybe it's time to work outside the law. I didn't realize I'd said it out loud until Emma looked at me sharply. After the police left, with promises to look into it that we all knew were meaningless, Emma and I sat in my living room, jumping at every small sound. Mom, what did you mean about working outside the law? I thought about Marcus and his friends. About private security and evidence gathering and the kinds of solutions that don't require court orders. I meant maybe it's time we stopped playing defense. The next morning, I called Marcus. He escalated, I told him. How much? I described the brick incident. Marcus listened without interrupting. Okay, he said when I finished. Time for phase 2. What's phase 2? We make Derek's life as complicated as he's been making yours. Fair's fair. Marcus, I don't want you to do anything illegal. Maggie, trust me. I've been doing this for 15 years. I know exactly how far we can push without crossing lines that can't be uncrossed. 3 days later, Derek's life started falling apart. It began with his unemployment benefits being suspended pending an investigation into fraudulent claims. Apparently, someone had reported that he'd been working under the table while collecting benefits, which, according to Marcus's research, was actually true. Then his landlord received an anonymous tip about unpaid rent and property damage. An inspection revealed multiple lease violations, including unauthorized modifications to the apartment and evidence of smoking in a non-smoking building. His car was repossessed. Turns out he'd been 3 months behind on payments and the lender had finally tracked him down. And somehow, screenshots of his browser history ended up being sent to every woman in his contact list, including his mother, his sister, and several ex-girlfriends. Marcus called me on the 4th day. "How's your boy doing?" he asked cheerfully. "I wouldn't know. He hasn't bothered us in almost a week." Funny how that works. Hard to harass people when you're busy dealing with your own problems. "Marcus, I have to ask, don't ask." Plausible deniability, remember? All I'll say is that sometimes revenge needs a little help finding the right address. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt bad about using Marcus's questionable methods to destroy Derek's life. Instead, I felt relieved. For the first time in weeks, I could sleep without wondering if someone was walking around my porch. Emma could go to work without looking over her shoulder. The peace lasted exactly 9 days. On the 10th day, Derek showed up at Emma's office building. Not lurking in the parking lot this time, he walked right into the lobby and asked to see her. Security called Emma down to deal with him. She should have refused. Should have had security throw him out. But Emma was still, at heart, a kind person who believed that talking could solve problems. Big mistake. "Derek, what are you doing here?" They were standing in the lobby, surrounded by Emma's coworkers and random visitors. Derek looked terrible, unshaven, wearing the same clothes he'd probably slept in, his eyes bloodshot and wild. "You did this," he said, his voice carrying across the marble space. "You and your psycho mother. You destroyed my life?" "Derek, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me." His voice echoed off the walls. People were starting to stare. "My benefits, my apartment, my car, you did all of it." Emma took a step back. "Derek, you need to leave." "I need to leave?" He laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "I need to leave? You're the one who broke up our marriage. You're the one who chose your mommy over your husband. You're not my husband anymore. The annulment. Screw the annulment." Derek was shouting now. Security was moving toward them, but not fast enough. "You think you can just erase me? Pretend I never existed?" He grabbed Emma's arm, his fingers digging into her skin. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Derek, let go of me." "Not until you listen." That's when Emma did something that made me proud and terrified in equal measure. She'd been taking self-defense classes since the tire-slashing incident, another precaution that had seemed paranoid until this moment. She brought her knee up hard, right into Derek's groin. He doubled over, gasping, his grip on her arm loosening. Security reached them just as Derek started to straighten up, fury replacing pain on his face. "Ma'am, are you okay?" One of the guards, a big guy who looked like he might have played football once upon a time. "I'm fine. But I want him arrested." Derek was being escorted toward the door, but he was still talking. Still yelling. "This isn't over, Emma. You hear me? This isn't over." The lobby had gone completely silent except for Derek's voice echoing off the walls. "I know where you live. I know where your mother lives. You can't hide from me forever." And there it was. Finally. A clear, public threat with dozens of witnesses. Derek was arrested 20 minutes later in the parking lot, where he'd been waiting for Emma to come outside. His car, or rental, since his had been repossessed, was full of what the police report would later describe as surveillance materials. Photos of Emma's workplace, maps with my house marked on them, notes about our daily routines. He'd been planning something. Something bad. The trial was 4 months later. Derek's lawyer tried to argue that he was the victim of a campaign of harassment orchestrated by Emma and me. That we'd systematically destroyed his life out of spite. It might have worked, except for 2 things. First, Marcus's friends had been very thorough in their evidence gathering. Derek's browser history, his financial records, his phone records, everything painted a picture of a man who'd been escalating his behavior for months. Second, Derek couldn't keep his mouth shut. When he took the stand in his own defense, he started ranting about how Emma had betrayed him, how I had poisoned her against him, how we deserved whatever happened to us. The jury deliberated for exactly 47 minutes. Derek was sentenced to 18 months in prison and a 5-year restraining order. He was also ordered to pay restitution for the property damage and court costs. As they led him away, he looked back at Emma and me sitting in the gallery. "This isn't over," he mouthed silently. Emma squeezed my hand. "Yes, it is," she whispered back. And you know what? She was right. Derek served 14 months, got out early for good behavior, though I question the judgment of anyone who thought Derek was capable of good behavior. By then, Emma had moved to a new city for a job opportunity, and I'd sold my house and moved closer to her. Fresh starts all around. Derek tried to contact Emma once after he got out, a letter forwarded through her old address. She threw it away without reading it. Sometimes the best revenge is indifference. These days, Emma's doing better than ever. She's got a job she loves, friends who actually support her, and she's dating a guy named James who thinks she hung the moon and stars. When she talks about maybe getting married again someday, her eyes light up instead of looking worried. And when she does get married, really married, not some courthouse quickie, I'll be there. Front row, crying happy tears, wearing whatever ridiculous mother of the bride outfit she picks out for me. Because that's what real love looks like. It shows up. It celebrates. It doesn't make you choose between the people you care about. Derek taught Emma a lot of things, actually. He taught her that love shouldn't make you smaller. That the right person won't isolate you from your family. That when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. He also taught her that her mother doesn't mess around when it comes to protecting her family. That sometimes you have to fight for the people you love, even when, especially when, it gets messy. As for me, I learned that revenge isn't always about getting even. Sometimes it's about stopping someone from hurting the people you love ever again. Sometimes it's about showing your daughter that she's worth fighting for. And sometimes, just sometimes, life has a sense of justice after all. I never did find out exactly what Marcus and his friends did to Derek during those 9 days when he left us alone. Marcus maintains that Derek's problems were the result of his own poor choices finally catching up with him. Justice, Marcus always says with that accountant smile of his. She's a beautiful thing when she gets going. Maybe he's right. Maybe Derek's life fell apart because he built it on lies and manipulation and other people's money. Maybe everything that happened to him was just natural consequences finally arriving. Or maybe, just maybe, justice sometimes needs a little help from people who know how to pull the right strings. Either way, Emma's safe. She's happy. She remembers who she is and what she deserves. And Derek? Well, Derek learned something important too. When you mess with someone's family, you'd better be prepared for the family to mess back. Some people are worth going to war for. Emma's one of them. And me? I'm exactly the kind of mother who goes to war for her daughter. Derek should have remembered that before he decided I wasn't special enough for his little celebration. Turns out, I'm more special than he ever imagined.